Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Haas. I hope you're all doing well tonight. I can't really speak for your emotional or your physical struggles, but I think financially we're all in the same boat. That brings me to the reason why I'm here today. Income inequality affects over 99% of us, so I think it's fair to assume that everybody in the room is affected by this today. And the thing is, most people don't even know why. See, far too often, people wonder why their grandparents 50 years ago could afford so much more than we could. They could afford a house with a family of four. They could afford 2 cars, clothing, food, and a savings account to go on vacation. People aren't really aware why this affects them, but it is because of income inequality. Like I said, it affects over 99% of us, and it's made our society so divided as far as political agendas and policy making. But I believe that there's a bipartisan solution for all of us that we can agree on, whether you're right wing, left wing, up or down, big or small. College has made me develop a passion for socioeconomic politics. That paired with my sense of diplomacy and wanting to bring society back together has made me really interested in this. Also, in my studies, I found that peer-reviewed literature is very important in assessing a situation and coming to a conclusion. The problem with America today is people are eating up information that is biased and they never assess its credibility. It's not just on the internet, but it can even be on TV too. So we're going to talk about the root of the problem, what has made income inequality spiral out of control. We're going to talk about the way that society actually functions today, how it can practically move, and we're going to talk about a couple bipartisan solutions that I'll pitch that I think we might all agree with. So, before the 80s, economic policy making was centered around the consumer. Economic stimulus was made possible by giving consumers a break. That was until the 1980s when a president by the name of Ronald Wilson Reagan introduced supply-side economics. Ever since then, the gains amongst the middle class, they have dropped sharply. As you'll see right here, before supply-side economics was introduced, everybody was getting their equal share of gains. Ever since then, it's spiraled out of control, and only the wealthiest 5% of Americans are getting the greatest share. There's a Senator, Elizabeth Warren, in Massachusetts. She's come to the conclusion that only the wealthiest 10% of Americans have benefited from supply-side economics since it's been introduced. And what this has done is it's not only created power and influence from corporate America over Capitol Hill, but it's also spawned some starkly contrasting opinions amongst us and the general public. So we've talked about that problem. Now I want to tell you guys and open your eyes to the way that society can actually function in a practical manner. My political science teacher in college put it very simply. He said that we've seen cases of sociology, socialism. We know that it can lead to communism, dictatorship, totalitarianism. But what people don't know about the purest form of capitalism is that it can actually be anarchy. See, society actually needs government regulation in order to function. Think about the late 90s when Enron and MCI had their accounting scandals. The government had to start the SEC to watch out for the stockholders. And in 2009, when the housing bubble popped because of liar lending, we had to make some government regulations for that to keep liar lending from happening again. We'll even see it around us every day. Every time you get on the road and you drive, that is the DMV collecting your registration fees and dispersing it so that way they can pave the roads. Every time you drop your kid off at school, it's because they're collecting property taxes and dispersing it to the schools. So that way we can keep our generation strong, keep them intelligent. So we talked about that. And now I just want to pitch a couple solutions for you guys that I think you might all get on board with. So like I said, the power and influence that has spawned from supply-side economics, it has created lobbyism and cronyism, which kind of goes against the free market nature of capitalism. They've created barriers of entry. And there's a general rule that they say about social and economic life that is given any system, people will find a way to exploit it. And corporate America certainly has. So one thing is I propose that we limit campaign funding. This is a chart of gross campaign funding for every presidential election in the last 50 years. You can see it's rising at an exponential rate. Federal budgets won't fund this at an exponential rate. So where all this excess and surplus of money it's coming from Fortune 500 companies, it's coming from corporate America. If we limit this, then maybe we can limit corporate America's influence over Capitol Hill. Next, I want to talk to you about human capital. It's basically, if you don't know what it is, it's strengthening your labor force. It's equipping them with skills and knowledge to succeed in the future. See, in today's day and age, robotization is displacing all the blue-collar workers, and that's imminent. It's going to happen. But I think that we can offer some government-funded job enrichment programs that could get these blue-collar workers skilled in another trade that will be needed for years to come. Countries like Norway, they offer these job enrichment programs. I know people might have some bad things to say about Norway, but the fact of the matter is that their per capita GDP is actually 20% higher than ours. So I think that's admirable. It's exemplary. My next point is how we are going to fight the 1% that already have that unfair share of money. I propose that we have some government advocacy for some worker cooperatives. See, the most breakthrough inventions, they're invented in people's basements and people's garages by small companies, only to be squashed by patenting loopholes or to be procured for a very small amount of money by a Fortune 500 company, only to add to their pockets and to diminish ours. If we create a network of middle-class entrepreneurs that can band together and use their skills, whether it's in logistics or technological development, they can obtain some loans to band together and actually compete with these Fortune 500 companies. So that's just a few issues. And you'll see right here that the number of startups has actually dropped sharply in the last few years. The reason why? Walmartization. Basically retail America. They have too much money, they can buy in bulk, they can give better deals for the consumer. Government regulations create barriers of entry. This is kind of ironic. It goes against free market capitalism. But what these bigwigs are doing is they're influencing Capitol Hill to create these barriers so that way nobody can compete with them. Lastly, mega corporations, they're suppressing entrepreneurship. They're moving into these areas and they are discouraging these brilliant minds from developing and patenting their own things. So, we've talked about the problem, we've talked about the way a society actually functions, and we've talked about some proposals that I have that I think we can all agree with. So I'll just leave you with this, like income inequality, it's spiraled out of control. It can be resolved with a few issues that we might be able to all agree on. And supply side economics, like I said in the beginning, it's made corporate USA just have this unbearable power over government policy making. And let's face it, whether you're radical socialist, radical capitalist, that's not going to work. We're going to have a mix of both socialist and capitalist tenets in order for our society to function. So I'll just leave you with this. Plato once said that the wealthiest members of society should be no more than 5 times richer than the average earners. Yet in the United States, the richest Americans, they are making over 600 times more than the average earner. So it seems a little tilted, seems a little unfair. I'm just going to leave you guys with that. Thank you for your time. I hope everything you said we can agree on and understand. I appreciate you guys.